each other as well. So I think I'll actually start and just kind of ask Isabel, like, is there any other like projects you're currently working on that you'd like to maybe share more about?
Well, basically, I relate to Joshua a lot, I feel, because we work with family and autobiographical topics. So the topic I'm working on is abuelas, my grandmothers, and I'm making a set of illustrations in the memory of them, and also in the memory of women who have been very important, older women in my life, not only from the plot, but related to me. And well, it's being under construction, but it's a project I have in mind. Yeah. I would, if you're okay with it, would you like to share more about your new book, the one that's going to be coming out soon?
Yeah. With this project, with the chapbook, it was just all poems about my mother. A lot of poems were in her voice, and even the poems that wasn't in her voice, it was still me writing about her from my perspective. So I think writing about her was like liberating in a way that it almost like I feel like I had to like break through this sort of figuring out where I came from and understanding her. I think it was like a way for me to actually understand myself more. So I think the longer I wrote that collection, I got a chance to see that I was actually trying to learn about myself through her. And then I think doing that, it kind of gave me enough confidence to actually like write about myself afterwards. So the new manuscript where the last two poems were from, called Grace Engine, they're poems that are like thinking about like generational trauma, but also thinking about it from like a very personal perspective. So I'm trying to think about like the ways generational trauma affects Black people, the ways this affects like Black communities, and just think about that like on a very personal level, and just seeing like the conversation there. There's still a lot of poems like about my mother in that collection, but they're like surrounded by other poems about my grandmothers, my grandpa, like all types of stuff. So I think just for me, just having this writing, being able to write this was like this breakthrough that gave me the confidence to actually like discover things about myself and write about myself in a very, very like personal way. And if anyone has like any questions, y'all can like raise your hand. If I pass the mic or just like hear feedback from the crowd as well. But we have questions for each other just in case as well. So I can ask you another question. Yeah.
So walking in, I didn't really know what to expect, and I like to walk into situations like that. I do. First off, I really enjoy the poetry and also the visual art. So when I came in, I was actually thinking that it was going to be poetry translated visual art, which is really interesting because it's the other way around. If I'm understanding you correctly, right? So you wrote the poetry and you created the work of art from translating this poetry. So it's visual art, translating poetry, right?
Yes.
So I just wanted to, so it's a question for both of you. What was the process like, translating Joshua's poetry into a visual work of art, and also Joshua, like, looking at the visual poetry, like, how do you feel like your poetry was expressed through visual art? And whoever wants to go first.
Well, for me it was like immediately I connected to his work, to his words, they moved me. Also through his poems I got to know his mother, so I was deeply touched, and it was very flowing. I usually say that everything we do flows very easily, and I don't mean easy like in a bad way, but smoothly, and it just flowed through my pencils, the shapes. I usually work like taking some concepts and words from what I am inspired, in this case the poems, and then I start to draw. The colors, they just also came from intuition. I work a lot from intuition, so it was basically the process, and Joshua gave me a lot of creative freedom, so for me that was super important. And yeah, it was, for me, it was a beautiful process.
Yeah, with the when Lucy had the idea to like do the collaboration, she was asking like, what is it like the expectations? And I was like, just whatever inspires you from the poems. Like I'm open to anything. So So it was always like kind of shocking. It always took me back, like to see like the fact that the words created these came from like my words. So it was like really yeah, it was like really like it gave like life to the words in ways that I didn't think I understood, or ways I couldn't even see the poems myself. So to see like the conversation that they're having, like things and small details that I mentioned like in one line, and I didn't know if it was that significant, but to see her visualize it in that way, it felt like it was like this really intense sort of like respect for the words, and I was like really appreciative to like have someone like put so much respect into the words, and I think in like in return it's also showing like respect for my mother, and like all this in the cycle. I think they're all like in conversations with each other. Yeah, I think thinking about that question, I think another aspect that I forgot to mention is when I first started writing the poems, it was like it's like a semester where I was like in undergrad, and I was like just writing a lot of poems about women, and I started writing a few poems about my mother, and I felt like really connected to it. So I asked her like permission if she would be okay with me writing poems about her and possibly writing in her voice. And then she said she was like really open to it, and she was so open to it that she like gave me her journals and let me like read her journals like that. Yeah, journals like over the last like 30 plus years, and she's like let me read these, and so the other poems come directly from like journal entries and like letters that she like gave to me. So yeah, so it's like the conversation between like her and the journals, and the journals to me, and then me to like Isabel. So it's like this lineation that's like happening. I think it's like a beautiful sort of conversation that's happening.
That really makes me like have another question.
Yeah.
No, really, that's amazing. That's beautiful, right? The journal entry, you said like 30 plus years.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. Because I was really thinking about like while you were presenting the poetry, like having poems in her voice and also in your voice. And I was also really thinking about like the permission that you were asked, like when you asked my mother, you know, if I was to, you know, write and also share it in her voice, right? I'm just curious about that process as well. Really just writing in her voice and also yours, because you also do mention that writing about your mother helped you to find yourself,
Yeah.
right? And finding your voice through your mother's voice. If that's really like, so I'm just really curious just about that process of writing in your mother's voice and also in your own.
Yeah, just tag along to that. Like, did you ever find it difficult to write from her perspective, or were there moments where you were struggling with this is how I would say it, or how I would phrase it, versus what she would kind of do things? Or
Yeah. While I was thinking about some of that stuff too. Yeah, so it was I was really terrified at first, because I took on the project. I asked her to give me permission, and then once, I think the first time I read her letters, I was just like, oh, I have to actually do this, and I have to like respect her experiences, her voice, and like her femininity, and like all these, I have to like respect all these things, and so I was like put a lot of pressure on myself to like I can't like misrepresent her. She's sharing these things with me that are like so personal. So I was just like, every poem I was like really hard on myself. Like I need to like find her voice as like succinctly as I could. And it got to a point maybe like a year into the project, I felt like really comfortable writing in her voice. So I had like this sort of fear that maybe I was not writing in her voice, or writing in the voice that I saw her as, which was not what I wanted to do. I wanted to fully capture her and kind of remove myself. But then I guess the further I got to the project, I realized I couldn't really do that. And then I think that's why I started to realize that I'm actually just kind of finding my own voice through her. And it was like, because I guess the thing I struggled with, I was like, I just want to get as close to her as possible in the poems and farther away from myself. And then I kind of realized that I don't think it's possible. And I think once I accepted that, that wasn't possible. I just kind of was able to kind of just write sort of freely, and just kind of understand like this isn't, I know this isn't fully her voice. This is me trying my best to represent her in a respectful way. But there'll always be like that distance that I know I won't be able to actually like close that gap. But I think I just kind of like accepted that, kind of understood that after a while, and yeah, it just made me kind of, the whole thing was like very terrifying, like just misrepresenting her, like making her, so another process aspect is every time I write a poem in that manuscript, I'll like send it to her and show it to her. And she's not a poet, but so she didn't really understand much, but she kind of pick up some references. But I was just like, this is for you, this is about you, this is like all this like to honor you. So it was like she was like just a part of the entire process in every way. So I always wanted to have that communication. So yeah, it was extremely difficult. I put a lot of pressure on myself and just was very like kind of just worried about like also like the gender aspect too, just like you're adopting a woman's voice, also a woman's voice who grew up in a certain time, grew up in a certain area, so it's just like, and it's a lot of the experiences I didn't have growing up, so just like try to show respect to them, and just give her as much grace as I can inside the poems as much as possible. I think, yeah.
So, I wanted to ask you, do you have like a poem you connected more from the whole book?
Yeah, I think for me the sections that are in her voice are the ones I definitely connect with the most. But one of the ones that stand out the most is the poem "Break." And I think because it's talking about this very like sort of very specific moment and very unique moment, and I felt like it's one of the poems I felt like most confident about after I wrote it, that it actually captured her voice in a really strong way. Like it was, I think, picked up on like nuances in motherhood and like her personal experience, like through the postpartum depression. And I was just really proud of like the way the poem I think captures that. So I just like one of the poems that I just like felt really strongly connected to. It's almost like the poem wrote itself. It's like one of those sort of experiences where you kind of take on this idea of writing this poem, but by the end of the poem, it feels like someone else wrote it for you because it felt like it came out so easily.
You talked about in writing Waltz, you were trying to give grace to your mother, and I know that the new work is called Grace Engine. So I wonder about this concept of grace and if it's something that is translated from the previous work or something that you've grown into to understand more.
Yeah, there's like a huge sort of like connection, I think, between like both projects. Both are like very family like related. Like the family connection is like very apparent. But yeah, it's like the idea of like how do you represent people you love and respect in a graceful way. So whether it's speaking in their voice, whether it's like talking about them or talking through them in different ways. So I think writing Fresh Anthology gave like that sort of freedom to explore in other people. So in Grace Engine, I talk about like relatives I've never met, my grandparents who I'm known, but like I'm not like known like very like as an adult. So like my memories of them feels like kind of like scattered, and also writing about like there's one sort of aspect of the book where I'm speaking about these lynchings that happened in the South, and I'm just trying to understand the situation and understand why it's like affecting me in the way that it is when I read about them. So I'll try to write about these people in a similar way I think I was writing about my mother. Like how can I best show grace to these people? Because in their case they aren't here anymore. So it's almost like I think that demand for grace almost feels a little even more urgent. And I think in that writing about my mother is like I think almost like a practice lead up to that in a lot of ways. Yeah.
Oh yes. Your name is Isabella?
Isabel.
Isabella?
Yes.
Okay, so Isabella, I have a question for you.
Yes,
Okay. So, you know, as I was saying before, when I walked in, I thought it was the visual art being translated into poetry, but it's really poetry being translated into visual art. And so I think some of the themes I was picking on may just be themes coming from the poetry, right? But you also mentioned that between the two, it just kind of flows, and so you also have like a theme for family, and you said your next project is sort of like the important meaning of your life, right?
Yes.
So I think I have like a two-part question. Um, so like, who would you say is like one of the most significant or important women in your family that drives either your art or your next project? And you also mentioned that you use or you follow intuition when creating your art or color. I can't remember which one it was, and so I think just you say both, so perfect. So I guess those two questions once again. Who would you say is the most important or significant, woman in your life that kind of drives like your craft or your art, and also like what is your process of trusting intuition in creating your art?
Thank you. Well, I would say that my grandmothers, all of them, like just like Joshua was saying, like I found myself through them. Also, I have come to understand myself through learning about their lives. But there's a huge figure, my mom. Yeah, my mom who basically huge support, huge inspiration, and we're very different, but somehow she's very present there. And I at the intuition part, I guess I would say like I couldn't draw rationally. I have to connect with the heart, and that's why I connected so much with Josh's work, because it has to go through the soul. If I can't, it's kind of difficult to explain that process because it's very intuitive. But I would say it's just cathartical, and it's like the language I have to communicate with the world. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I know you're working on something coming up, and then obviously so is he, but could you all see each other collaborating again, or is that something y'all talked about, or something in the works, or?
Yeah, if you want to start.
If you can
Yeah, we I think because this collaboration went so well, and these illustrations came out like so fast for her, we talked about like a few different ideas of like the reverse, like you talked about, like her art and me writing off of that, and seeing how that reverse actually like works out. So that's like one idea, and another one was her doing some illustrations possibly for the my next manuscript, which is like very different in a lot of ways, but we were thinking about the possibility of like seeing how those might work in the future as well.
Yes. I guess my whole friendship with Josh is about conversations, and that's what I love, because usually I work really solo, and somehow like this flows very easily when I see his craft, when he sees my craft. So I'm down for anything you propose, like regarding working together or exploring new mediums. I'm always open to work with him. It's been amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask a couple more questions.
Okay.
And so I'm curious about like how, so you're Colombian, so I was curious about how does being from Colombia like affect your work? Or what impact does it have on your art?
Yeah, sure. Well, I work a lot with nature, so nature inspires me a lot in my drawings. And basically, being a Colombian and a Colombian woman, I would say it's due to our history. We have a lot of pressure regarding aesthetics and these stereotypes. So for me, art has been like a breakthrough from all of that, and getting to know myself better through my drawings, embracing myself and embracing my body. So it's been like I don't know to call it like a rebel yell, but for me it's been like a way of embracing myself and maybe going against that culture of that's a heritage of many complex situations we have in our country that in a way have shaped women. So basically I would say that. And of course, like there are many artists there that influenced me, the pre-Colombian communities, indigenous communities that were there, many artists over there, as I said, nature. So also many beautiful things that I take from my country and I try to, in a way, also honor. So we did a collaboration before, and I know you had translated some poems in Spanish, and I was wondering how that experience was for you, and would you be like interested in having more poems translated in the future? Yeah.
Yeah, when we first did our collaboration in 2020, it was just like 3 of these images, and then when we kind of decided to do the new work, then she kind of like did the rest. But when we did the collaboration in 2020, I think we had the idea of like there's some online journals that have like translations, so you can like submit in Spanish or submit in English. So we had another friend of mine named Alonso offered to actually like translate the poems for me. So it was almost like this, like the continuation that I mentioned of like the poems actually started with my mom's letters, and then the poems came out of that, and then the illustrations came out of that, and then also from the poems, the translations came. So I feel like that in itself was like another type of translation that was happening, the conversation that kept happening amongst all these sort of different mediums. Yeah, I would love to like actually like have to explore that more like in my work, like seeing like what kind of comes of it. Because just talking to my friend who did the translation, he mentioned that when you're translating a poem, you're really you're still like creating how you can poem in a way, because the way the language transfers is very, very different. So there's different like aspects of different things he's pulling out. And that is that idea also of just like even if he tried to remove himself, he would still represent himself in the work in different ways, because it's coming from him and it's his type of translation. So yeah, all these connections I think are like really beautiful the way they all connect in that way. So yeah, I would love to like kind of like explore that more in the future. So I know for me, definitely writing Grace Engine, the next manuscript, is like a really big healing process for me. Like writing through poems, like maybe I think it was like healing traumatic experiences, just be able to write through these things. So I'm curious if has like drawing been a part of your healing process? In what ways has drawing been a part of your healing process?
I think I mentioned a little bit about that before, but basically it's been the way. I think I don't express very well with words, but with that I can communicate to others what I feel with drawings, shapes, and it's been a way of embracing basically the whole, that like my complete self, and yeah, it's been very important. It's my medium to get to know myself. I tend to say that I draw, therefore I am. So every time I draw, it's kind of me, like it's speaking and getting to know myself better, and also letting out a lot of things that kind of bother me, or yeah. I wanted to ask you how is the process, of writing for you, like encountering a white piece of paper? I know that might sound very cliche, of course, but I mean, like, how's that moment for you? Like, how's your relationship with having a blank paper there?
I think with the newer work, it will usually come from like an issue or idea or a person that I want to like write towards, and try to like write and figure out maybe why this person or this issue is important to me. And sometimes I didn't know it before I start writing why this thing stood out to me. So in the process of writing, I would try to I'll have that one idea, and then I was always trying to complicate it. So I think, is there other things in conversation with this that can be juxtaposed and have a conversation with that make it a little bit more add layers? Because I think when these things go together, it creates like a certain type of tension. So it was just like thinking about, all right, this is this one idea I have, and this is the other idea, and can I put these things together, or does it work putting them together, and then seeing the conversation that they're having. So just trying to like juxtapose things, create tension, and then understand myself, I guess, through these different things that are happening too.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you, how do you, how is the process, of writing for you? Like, how do you
So if anyone else have any more questions?
Yeah. I guess I'll ask the same question for you. It's like, how do you get engaged with a blank canvas, if you will? And it's like, what that process look like? And I kind of want to ask like another question for you as well, because I know blankness can be intimidating, right? I remember as a student, I used to suffer from writer's block. It would take me like 2 hours to get started, right? And so, yeah, I guess that the same question for yourself. Like, what is your experience with a blank canvas? And I guess also for you, Joshua. Well, you just asked me the question. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Thank you.
Okay, to me that experience, I feel like that blank canvas is like an opportunity. I see it that way. When it doesn't come to something like limiting myself, limitations are good, but like when it comes to, when something is set and you have to do it in for example, a commission or something like that in a strictly way, it's also good because it shows you other ways to create. But I always tell Josh that, for example, I like painting this like by the side of digital work because I mainly do digital, and I love mistakes, especially when it's handcraft, with my hands and stuff like that, because then I find something else, like a new path, and then it comes my mother again. Like since I was very little, she taught me like to draw that way. So every mistake on paper or while I was learning to write, it was like an opportunity to create a flower or something else. So for me, the approach to it is I like it. I see it as an opportunity, especially when there's creative freedom. Yeah. I guess only when the head gets in the middle, in my case, when I become too rational, then I find obstacles. Yeah.
Nice. It almost sounds like coming back into intuition again. It's like,
Yeah.
you have to think about what I'm about to do, let me just do it.
Yeah.
Right.
It flows. And somehow I need to let it flow. If it doesn't, I'm not being myself. And somehow art is one of the few ways that I find in the world to be very honest to myself, So yeah, I guess I have to be through there. So, thank you.
Yeah, actually, kind of think of a discussion we had before about the artist Zumbambico and then the woman Isabel and like the conversation between the two, and then and I think similarly, I think the me that exists in the poem or the me that is writing the poem is different than the me that is just Joshua. I think that I would love to maybe hear like about like that tension or like the conversation between Isabel and Zumbambico.
Yeah, I guess I see Zumbambico like my child, like it's my brand and the way I created, like I go as an illustrator, as an artist. So I was telling Josh that I don't know if it's like an alter ego because at the same time I feel it's like myself being the most honest I can be. But somehow like I feel when just like you were saying, when you're writing poetry, that I feel I'm the most me that I can be, and just like you are when you write poems. So I feel I don't know if I asked your answer, but I feel Zumbambico brings me a lot of confidence that maybe I don't find in Isabel because there's a lot of other history that Zumbambico doesn't have. So, but at the same time, we are the same. We are the same person. Yeah.
Yeah, so if there's any more questions, let me know. But yeah, we can kind of just, for the last like 30 minutes, like maybe walk around and see the art a little bit more, and also if anyone else like buy any chapbooks or any like the beautiful illustrations and like the plates and the things she has over there, you can like check these things out as well. There's still like a lot of like food and beverages for y'all as well. Yeah, thanks everyone for all your support, and like coming here has like been like a huge pleasure. So thank you so much.